Hi, everybody. Mark Hanna here with Wisdom Games. Welcome to another episode, episode 4, your weekly dose of ASL. Today we're going to look at something that's relatively important, but I have a feeling a lot of people aren't going to like it, and that's the fundamental flaw. It's actually a fundamental flaw of any tactical game, but it comes into play in ASL a lot. And I know that designers really try to figure out ways to fix this problem, but in too many scenarios, they haven't. And what is this fundamental flaw? This is the last turn bonsai charge. Try to win the game by any means possible. Completely unrealistic. Let's throw all of our men trying to get the objective no matter how many people perish part of the game. And that's what this episode intends to address. So I'm going to switch now over. So let me pause this for a second. I'm going to switch to a close-up of this particular situation in a recent playtest I was involved in. Material here, which is the episode 4 material. Now let's zoom in on this situation. So this is something that can happen in a campaign game. I seem to find myself in these situations more often than I should because of my risky play technique. So here, it's a night scenario. Actually, the NVR is 2 at this time. And what's happened here is these British troops, which is 9-2 Piat, okay, and this have all just moved up here. And they want to take a shot at these guys in the advance phase. So what you have here is a stack of 3 units. They've all actually rendezvoused here because of, I would say, relatively bad luck of breaking almost every time the British person fired at me. Even though this individual claimed he has bad luck, he wasn't having it today, that's for sure. So I'm sitting here in a stack. Now everybody's going to say, huh, look at Hannah. There he is stacking up again. He should know by now. Every noob knows you don't stack in ASL. But that's not true. I mean, in a night scenario, one of the only ways you can salvage a situation and not get picked off piecemeal is to try to rally him. And look, I have a 9-2 here. This 9-2 has a good chance of rallying. And in fact, in my rally phase, I had rallied one of these guys, and one of them stayed DM. So actually, the situation was more like this. I had 2 squads. They had actually fired in the defensive fire phase, and I think I got a morale check, but I failed to break this 9-2. In response, in his advancing fire phase, he shot back at me. Now he's got a 1.5. Okay, we were using the incremental fire table. So he's got 1.5 in the advancing fire phase. He's got a -2, but he's CX. There's a guy right there, so that's another hindrance. Plus he has the night visibility hindrance due to the fact that these guys are not in a hex with terrain that's higher than them by a full level. So I'm like, fine, okay, I'll have to deal with a 1.5 plus 1. And of course, in the incremental fire table, he really basically needs at least a 3 to do anything. Well, you already know what I'm going to tell you. He rolled a 3 on this. All right. So I had to take the morale check. What did I roll with a 9-2? He rolled a 12. Not only did he break, but he also rolled a 6 for killing himself. So there goes the 9-2. Now, this guy was next. He rolled also a 12. So he's a broken half squad reduced to a, actually I have to ELR fail him. So he's a 4-3-6, then he's casualty reduced and broken. Okay. This guy, actually he didn't break as I recall. This guy broke, so he was a half squad. Then I had to take leader lost morale checks. This guy died. This guy died. And I think this guy finally broke, and he was also reduced to a half squad. So I had a half squad left here, basically. Okay. That's what I remember. So from that measly attack, due to the fact that I'd stacked, I lost all these guys. Okay, so lesson number one, if you stack, you might take it in the chops. On the other hand, I think I had a chance to revive my attack. In this particular scenario, what the Germans don't want to have happen is to let these British people get up into these buildings here. This is the town hall. This is the post office. But basically, what this does is without these buildings to link this town with this town, these guys will be separate. There's a bunch of guys under no move counters here that are hidden. And I think I just took them off the map. And then over here, I'll have some guys, but he's going to be getting 18 squads or something. 18 648s are going to be coming in. This, in case you aren't aware, this is the Pegasus Bridge remake. Nice new map, much better looking map, and some different effects here. But the bottom line is the Germans need to stop this from happening. Now, if this was a regular game of ASL and I knew I had 2 turns left, and I did have a bunch of guys that were much closer, what you're seeing is the positions that they took after setting up for the next scenario. Because when you play a campaign game, you don't waste all of your units trying to make something happen that would then cause you not to have a bunch of troops in the next scenario. When you play a regular scenario of ASL, there's often cases where you don't care if you lose every single guy charging the last victory hex. And truth be told, I've done that, of course, in a tournament, and in one case, I won the tournament because I did this. That doesn't make it a good game. It doesn't make it a good scenario. It doesn't make it a realistic scenario. What it makes is a very gamey situation that's inherent in at least half of the ASL scenarios that are running close. And it's like, okay, it's the last turn. I'm going to run right at you and try to take you out. And sometimes you get away with it. It's a fundamental flaw in the game design. I don't know if there's any tactical games that can avoid this sort of last minute dash. Sometimes we try to limit this by, making sure the attacker can't take too many losses. So you'll see these CVP caps. The attacker wins if he takes the hex, provided he hasn't lost, and there's usually some weird number. I don't know how they come up with it. These designers, they're brilliant. Don't get me wrong. Maybe it's 19 CVP. Okay, so if you lose 20 CVP, then you can't do it. Okay, so maybe you're at 16 CVP, and if you try to rush the victory hex, you might lose 4 CVP and lose the game. Is that going to stop you from trying? Probably not. All right, so it doesn't actually work. The other problem with these CVP caps is that if you get bad luck, let's say he takes out a tank with a low odds attack, and all of a sudden you're at 7 or 8 CVP of your 19 CVP cap on turn 1A, all of a sudden you play more cautiously than you otherwise would have, because presumably the commander on your side has already warned you as squad leader that you can't lose too many men, and taking those 88s over there, you can't do it. So the CVP cap thing doesn't work either, and it's the end of turn nonsense. There's either sometimes we'll have a half turn in order so that the defender can't do his own counter bonsai charge on turn 7. So we end the scenario at turn 6.5. But that doesn't prevent the attacker from doing his, well, I call him a bonsai charge. I shouldn't call him that, but let's call it a desperate attempt to win. And then the half turn prevents the defender from having his counter desperate attempt to win. So unfortunately, that's what we have here. This is fixed in campaign games like this. Now, I've already recognized by this turn, with this disaster here, and then this Piat, this tank got killed by a 3, by the way. He shot it from over here. Needed a 3 to hit it with his Piat and burned it. Okay. And even though I have wall advantage here due to mandatory wall advantage requirements, I was pretty sure, and of course, actually he does. I'll show you, kill that tank later. Here's the end of the, yeah, here it is. You can see the scenario situation at the end of the second night turn. What's happened here, it's pretty evident. I'm not using an annotation marker. I suppose I should. Yeah, let me make some drawings here to make this a little more intelligent for everybody. So what I did was these Germans, I had some Germans here, they pulled back. I had some Germans here, they pulled back, and even up this road, they all pulled back. Instead of making a desperate attempt to try to go take the town hall, what I did was the logical thing and prepared for the next scenario. I'd taken too many losses. The 9-2 was history. A whole platoon was history with him. So let's set up for the next scenario. Now, in this game, the foxholes and buildings allow you to set up your perimeter within 2 hexes. So I came back and I did try to build and make a bunch of foxholes. I didn't succeed uniformly here, but I did make a couple, extending my perimeter out this way and then 2 hexes from the, sorry for the mess here, but the perimeter is going to be 2 hexes away from those. There'll be an overlapping perimeter area where he can possibly have claimed that terrain, but since we both claim it, it's no man's land. If you've played any of these campaign games, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay. Right, so that's the situation. And because of the campaign game mechanic, uh, you wind up with a force preservation mechanism that is absolutely natural and totally changes the game. Now, I'm not so sure if this is why some people only play campaign games, because you could probably, if the game lasts that long, probably only have 1 or 2 desperate charges on either side at the very last scenario. And you might see that to see if you can win the actual overall scenario. That's if the campaign game goes that far, which I'm hoping to make a challenge here at this point. But effectively, at this point, though, let me try to erase everything here. How do I do that? There we go. At this point, though, the British, and I'd have to agree with them, they've won this scenario. They have their perimeter here. You can see he built a foxhole here. He wasn't able to connect it, though. He needed to build another one over here to make a 2-step connection. So I don't know. He's probably drawn his perimeter. It might be okay because he's got a building here and he's got that one there. So I think he's got his perimeter connected all the way out to here. Okay, then 2 hexes away from these. He built a foxhole here. So he's actually failed to do it here, though. So his perimeter is going to look something like that. Okay, I'll have on the other side perimeters on each side. Unfortunately, though, he's going to have overwhelming forces, so I needed to preserve what I had in order to play the second scenario. This cures the fundamental flaw of tactical games. So that's a brilliant thing, isn't it? And that's why a lot of people, I think, only play campaign games because of that phenomenon. I'm not a big fan of this last turn surge that happens. in order to try to scrape out a victory when in reality, you should have withdrawn your forces 5 turns ago. So, anyway, that's my small presentation for this week. Very sorry, I have been quite busy this week. I don't have time to really put together uh, a more comprehensive video, but should be able to do better in the next weeks or so coming up. So thanks for listening. If you stayed this far to listen all the way, thank you for doing that. If you like this, love to have you press the like button, or if you want to subscribe, that would be welcome as well. In any event, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the battlefield.